How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. Today, I've not just got one special guest, I've got two very special guests for you. Today, I'm joined by two international powerlifters and a coach and athlete team. Today, I am joined by Carole O'Neill and Pia Marangoni. How are you both doing?
Yeah, yeah. Hi,
Good.
Steve. Yeah, all good. Good to be here.
It's always interesting when there's more than one person on. It's like who goes first to introduce themselves or say hello. But yeah, I suppose the first question: how have you two been getting on? What's kind of been happening in your worlds recently?
Who's going
Well,
first?
yeah, you're gonna do this. Let Carol go first.
Um, yeah, there's lots going on in my world. I guess Pia and I are both prepping for Masters Worlds at the moment in October in South Africa. So I guess we're both training hard. I'm working full time in parallel with that. I just got back from a trip to India just at the weekend. So I'm still jet setting around the world and trying to juggle all of that with training and life and dog and all of that. So yeah, I'm keeping out of trouble.
Busy, busy. And Pia?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, about the same. We've just we're looking to move cities, so we've just come down to a little place just outside of Cape Town, where Masters World is, and we came down about a week ago. My dog bit me, so I'm a bit miserable. Carol knows this. I can't deadlift because my finger's swollen, but I mean it's all good, right? Also, just doing all the things, trying to get into a groove, lift, run the business, eat all my protein, you know, just yeah,
Lots
day-to-day stuff.
Lots of stuff going on for you both, but I suppose one
Mm.
of the main questions is: are you both getting some downtime? Are you getting some recovery in with all the busyness that's going on?
Carol, you will always, okay, let's make a deal. You can answer all the questions first.
Okay,
Make
okay.
it easy, okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying. Actually, this is one of the really good things that Pia kind of keeps me accountable for in my weekly check-in. It's that whole piece around kind of stress management and recovery, and am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough downtime? Am I not spreading myself too thinly? Because I have been known to do that in the past. So yeah, I'm trying to be quite intentional about it. Some weeks are better than others, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly what Carol said. It's like, well, we know that we need to sleep and we need to eat and we need to do all of these things. Sometimes it's not feasible to do that, and we've just got to roll with the punches. I mean, uh, yeah, like life does life things, but also it's just about doing what you can with intention. So, yeah, I don't think anyone is getting enough sleep in this world. But, stressing about not getting sleep is not helping you. So you do what you can with what you've got.
Yeah.
And also I think sorry, it just to say Carol makes a very good point, is that sometimes we make our lives really difficult by layering on like lots and lots of things. And sometimes like quality over quantity. So not to say don't go out, but have like a great dinner with great friends in a great restaurant on a weekend, not five, breakfast,
Yeah.
lunch, and dinner type of thing. So it's just about kind of that intention.
Yeah, I always like to ask that question because I think everyone always leads with the busyness that's always going on. But I think sometimes it's always good to hear that hopefully in a good way, that sometimes actually getting recovery, getting sleep, is actually quite difficult because life, work, stuff just gets in the way. And exactly like what you said there, Pierre, I think sometimes people stress about, oh well, I've not been able to get this enough sleep, or I've not been able to eat this. But sometimes as long as on average, it's okay. Some weeks,
Yeah.
are going to be better than others. Um, I did quite a brief introduction at the start there, but I know a returning guest, Pia, on the podcast as well. But for everyone listening who might not know how basically you two started working together and kind of the success or journey that you've had together as well, just want to give a little bit of a background how you two started working together.
Sure. So it started just over 2 years ago, didn't it? I think we've just had our
Mm.
2 year anniversary of working together just
Yeah.
last month. And I had had a really crappy competition a couple of years ago. I'd done a big competition and prep had kind of gone quite well, and then the comp day itself was just a shocker. And I think that led me to kind of reevaluate a few things. So I made a few changes in how I was approaching the lifting. I changed my powerlifting coach and I decided to bring on board some nutrition coaching. And I'd been following Fiercely Fueled for quite a while online and kind of wondering, should I, shouldn't I? So I decided to take the plunge. I reached out, I had a call, liked what I saw, got matched with Pia from the team of coaches, and kind of the rest is history. I mean, it's been absolutely phenomenal. I decided at the time to cut a weight class as well because I was lifting as a sort of light-ish 84, and I'd weighed in really light for that competition. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to actually bite the bullet and drop down to the 76s in the IPF. So Pia started off helping me with that, and then it's just kind of continued from there.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't get rid of her now.
She keeps trying. She keeps trying to fire me, but I
I'm
don't know how
trying.
many.
It's a nice marker then to have you both on the podcast as an anniversary of 2 years. Then I didn't realize that, so
Tis.
it was meant to
Yeah.
be. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
With that, obviously, Carol, you mentioning there, experienced in powerlifting before working with Peer, but how kind of your how has both of your relationships developed over time? Because I think sometimes it can be, especially be working with other coaches or having done stuff that yourself for a while, sometimes you can have your own thoughts and beliefs that can be hard to let go of. So kind of from like both sides, how have you kind of both had that relationship? To Was it a case of, no, we're going to do all this, or small changes, take into account, because you both said at the start there, all the things outside of the gym, work, travel, food, sleep, all those sorts of things. How was your relationship developed, and what was kind of the battle plan from the offset, given Carol's experience before?
I don't know whether I really had a battle plan. I guess I didn't really know what to expect when I signed up. I mean, I knew I was getting nutrition coaching, and I'd had nutrition coaching, or I thought I'd had nutrition coaching in the past. But I think I've been really surprised at how kind of comprehensive it's been because I sort of expected probably to get some macros and to kind of follow them and to have a check-in every so often. And yeah, I get all of that, but I actually get a whole lot more than that. And I think I've been really surprised at just how I've been kind of looked after as a whole athlete. So there is a lot of focus on recovery. There's a lot of focus on kind of mindset and behaviors. And I think we can all track macros, I mean, that bit's easy. But I think what's been hard for me in the past is because I have a pretty full-on schedule with work and I travel a lot and I'm away from home a lot and I'm kind of at social events with work and I'm in foreign countries and I'm eating in restaurants and you can't always track that kind of psychological stuff about navigating that grey area um, has been the biggest game changer for me. I think historically I've tended to let trying to be perfect get in the way of being good enough. And I think one of the things that Pia's really helped me with is shifting that mindset away from perfection and
Yeah,
actually being kind of consistently good enough to get the results. And I mean, the results speak for themselves. It's been
yeah,
phenomenal. And we
cool.
got to meet last October, didn't we, in person for
Yeah.
the first time. We were both in Sun City for Masters Worlds and Commonwealths, so we actually got to hang out and go on holiday together and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's maybe we've become friends as well, haven't we? Over the
Ah, I
Yeah.
bet that
Yeah.
was, I bet
Yeah.
that was, I bet that was cool. I bet that was good.
Yeah, that was a nice little surprise, you know. But I think you know, over the last 2 years we've both evolved. And when Carol joined Fiercely Fueled, I was working as a coach, and then I mean it was shortly after that, then I actually bought the business and took over the business. So a big thing for me is that coaching is a journey and it's collaborative. And Carol's been like as part of the journey of my business as she has been an athlete. And I think that's really cool is that you we have space to grow and evolve. And, if you're the same coach that you were 2 years ago, that's not such a good thing, right? Because there's always new things, new experiences. Everything that we learn shapes the way we teach and we coach. And it's, especially with my athletes, is I value people who are like most of the athletes that we work with are high performing people. They are committed, they're invested, they understand the value of finding somebody to guide them in a particular way. Like, you know, be it in business or, you'll hire an interior designer to do the decor in your house, not because you can't do it, but just what they do and what they specialize in, for example. And, Carol really understood the value of that and made space for that. So didn't actually fight it. But I mean, like I think it's important for athletes to be able to voice what they're thinking and have discussion around it. And if somebody is really having a terrible time with eating their carbs because they're terrified of carbs, that's really an important thing to discuss. Or if you don't want to eat dairy or whatever it is, like that's really, really important to be able to have the space to go, okay, well, it's not my life. I don't have to live it. So we need to get the athlete to a place where they are comfortable and they can execute day to day. And that's more important than anything. And if that means you don't want to have whey protein, we'll find a way around it. So for me, like I think where nutrition coaching in general, but specifically in powerlifting, misses the point entirely is that you will see people come in for like a 12-week competition package, or we're going to help you make weight, or we'll give you macros. And we know, and I actually said this to Carol the other day, 6 weeks out, the work is done.
Hmm.
Okay, the work is done. You are not going to put 20 kilos, or if you do, that's outrageous. But it's about sharpening that sword and rounding off the edges and fine-tuning things and just putting you in the best position to perform. What really plays out in the platform is what you've been doing for the last 6 months, the last 12 months. And that's where nutrition coaches and powerlifting miss the boat, is that are we setting up people for longevity? Because throwing macros at somebody who has a high stress job, who has a lot of travel, who has responsibilities outside of the gym, it's not necessarily helping them in the long term. And I think also, like you give me a lot of credit, Carol, but I think Sarah Bradley has got a lot of influence here as well, because I think she has a very similar philosophy. It's about being able to be agile and adapting and evolving and helping
Yeah.
somebody find their cadence in a way that they can live forever ad
Mm.
nauseum, because that is how you're going to become your stronger self. And I mean, Carol just does everything that's asked of her, which is incredible. That's the secret to success. Just do what we ask. And I think yeah, it's really rewarding when somebody tries, you know. And they don't even have to get it right. They just need to try. And yeah, Carol's really open to everything. So thanks, Carol.
Good.
But you know what? I think you're exactly right what you say about Sarah. She's brilliant. Sarah's my powerlifting coach,
Yeah.
and I think I often say I've got the dream team around me now because I've got Pia, I've got Sarah, I've got a fantastic Cairo who looks after me because I'm not young anymore and all that sort of stuff. So I've got this fantastic infrastructure around me. But that piece about kind of doing as I'm asked to do, absolutely, because I just do not get why people pay experts to guide them and help them and support them and then ignore what they say. I mean, this
Yeah.
happens to me at work. I'm employed to do a thing at work and I give people at work advice on what they should do about particular things. And then they go off and ignore me and then look shocked when it goes badly. And why would you do that?
Yeah, I think a couple of words that you kind of both said there of yeah about doing what's asked of you, but I think the key word that you said there, it was a discussion, a chat about what's going on, and I know you've both said there about the success that you've had. But within those discussions, was there any challenges or anything that maybe took a little bit longer time to figure out or adjust? Because another word that you both mentioned there was kind of like it's a journey, and like with any journey, like what I was saying about on my scooter, it's not always plain sailing, but you end up getting into that end destination. And I always think sometimes it's a story to tell, or a lesson to learn, from anything that you do. Was there any kind of like challenges, whether it be too much travel in a certain amount of time? So it was a case of, you couldn't eat enough, and it was a kind of, all right, well, it's not the most optimal thing that we need to do, but we need to pivot a little bit. How kind of have you both worked around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been one challenge after another, hasn't there, with kind of work stuff and life stuff. And I think one of the things that's been really valuable for me with both Pia and Sarah is that they do call me out on my crap, frankly. When I am, because I can get very kind of single-minded, and I can want everything to be perfect, even when conditions are less than optimal. And both Pia and Sarah have said to me at different times on this journey, you know what, Carole, just cut yourself some slack here. It does not have to be 100% all the time. And if we need to adapt, if we need to flex, if we need to reduce the training volume, if we need to change up the macros, if we need to make changes, we can do that. And actually, it's often them saying to me that I need to pull back rather than me putting my hands up and saying, yeah, you know what, this is too much. I need to kind of dial it
Yeah,
back, because I will just kind of try and push through and kind
yeah,
of white knuckle my way through stuff, which I think one of my biggest learnings from the last couple of years has been that I don't always have to do that, and that
yeah.
actually you can still get results without kind of, needing to force everything all of the time to be 100%.
Yeah, yeah. And this is something, I mean, that I also get from my coach, Peter. Um, and it's like he explains it really well. Is that I've never heard anyone explain powerlifting in terms of like rugby, but hear me out. So he always says like there's a time to attack and there's a time to defend. And sometimes if as in rugby, if you in a position to attack, you get the ball, you can run, you can score the try, right? That's the dream. But we're not always going to be in a position to attack. And sometimes the job that we need to do is just keep the ball in play, stay current, stay on the field, because you've seen it. And like I'm not going to talk about the Springboks, but you've seen like you're about to score a try, and next thing the All Blacks have scored a try. Like 2 seconds later, you haven't even where's the ball? You don't even know what's happened. That can happen in powerlifting too. So sometimes these kind of setbacks, kind of you want to take yourself out of play, or you keep pushing and you'll get injured, right? So sometimes like just framing things in terms of today I have to play defense, and my job is just to keep in the game and do what I can do on the day, and that will keep the momentum going, and then I'll be putting myself in a position to attack, and that holds true every single time. And I think being okay with agility, because like nutrition agility and execution agility in terms of programming is really important, because I'm the type of person, and I think maybe that's why like we work so well together. If something is on my program, I am going to do it.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
it hurts me or not, I am going to do it.
Yeah.
And I used to before working with Peter, I remember doing a deadlift, like a very high frequency deadlift cycle, and the first block was fine. The second block, my back just fucked out. It just I halfway through I pulled my back locked up, and I was just like I couldn't stand up. And the coach at the time turned around and he said to me, this is your fault. And I was like, what are you talking about? This, I did everything you asked me to do. And he said, you were in pain and you didn't tell me, and you were negligent with your body. Okay, I mean, it was so harsh. But he's not wrong, right? He's not wrong. And maybe you could have phrased it in a better way, but it's like communicating, I think, is really important. And, you know, we only get feedback when we have action and execution. So whatever's written on paper is great until it gets put into practice. And sometimes when you do the thing, you're like, oh, this isn't working so great. We need to pivot, or it's working really well. So I think also being okay with like being more or less dialed in on any given day within a range is something a lot of people also struggle with. It's like sometimes it's okay to hit your macros 80% or 60% or not track because like Carol's traveling or she's in London or she's at an all-day board meeting or you know at a point we've built enough and this is also a big thing for me. Athletes know enough about what the food does for them that they can actually make intentional choices. And the word I'm using intentional as opposed to intuitive because I don't think anyone's intuitive, but eating with intention is sometimes the job that we need to do because being at a board meeting or a wedding and tracking macros is not functional.
Yeah, with the analogy that you used of rugby, I'm a big fan of an analogy. I think it's a good way. It's a good way to think about it. I think with when you've spoken about there of when you're writing things down, everything works on paper. Do you think kind of from both sides as like coach and athlete that it's beyond kind of the just like calories, macros, because that's information, but developing the skill of being able to work with that person and giving them a plan that they can execute, because this might be a double barrel question as well, but being that kind of mindset of um it might not be the most optimal given what everything's going on. But if, as as an athlete, you're feeling good and you're bought into that plan, that it's going to be executed a little bit better and the result's going to be a little bit better. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And actually, I think for me, the real game changer in all of this has been that kind of education piece and that self-sufficiency piece. And, we joke about it that Pia keeps trying to sack me because she doesn't believe in making athletes kind of forever dependent on her. And she keeps saying, you can do this on your own. And yeah, I can do this on my own. And I've got the skills now to be able to navigate all of the stuff I need to navigate. Pretty well and to adapt and pivot and when things aren't perfect and when I can't track and when I'm having to kind of get room service in a hotel at 9 o'clock at night and all of that. I know how to do that and to kind of keep things on track. But I think the reason that I enjoy continuing to work with Pia is it just takes a lot of the thinking out of it. It means that I don't have to kind of do all the planning. It's done for me. So it's like outsourcing. I
Yeah.
believe in
Yeah.
making life kind of easy, and having good people around you who can take care of some of the thinking, um, really helps with that. So I'm not expending mental energy where I don't need to. But absolutely, that whole kind of learning and education piece that means that I can do it for myself when I need to has been huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spoken like a CEO. But I make a joke. No, a lot of my clients are people in very senior leadership roles in business. And I think there is something to like actually knowing where your zone of expertise is and going, you can probably do it on your own. I mean, there's a lot of information out there, but if you could circumvent a lot of the time and just kind of get straight to the nuggets of what you need to do, you're far more efficient, right? And I think it's a big business mind. I'm just thinking of another lift, a Canadian lifter who's also, she's just like, oh, this is so cool because now I don't have to sift through tons of information and figure out what's working and what's not. You've just saved me 2 years. And sometimes it's about that. Same with me. Also, I mean, maybe my knowledge of programming is a bit dangerous, but if I needed to program for myself, I probably could. Maybe not do such a good job of it, but it's just good. It's just really that sort of holding space with someone and that like kind of that interplay. It's almost I don't want to use the word like a dance, right? It's
Mhm.
really fun because you can be an athlete without a coach, but you can't be a coach without an athlete. And I think that sort of like that volley, it's like it's really nice just to have that kind of interaction. But to go back to your question about like, how is it about macros? How do we get people to execute? I think there's more information available today than ever before. And I just need to just say this is that Yes, you can get you can plug your details into ChatGPT and get someone to spit out macros. You can ask it information, and I must just say that ChatGPT will reference everything on the internet, including Reddit and YouTube, when it's giving you an answer. So you get what you get. Okay, it's not always referencing medical papers or research papers, but that's fine. So if you wanted macros, you could very easily get them. The problem isn't macros. The problem is how do you get people to change behavior?
Hmm.
Nutrition coaching, recovery coaching, even powerlifting coaching is about getting somebody to do something potentially different to what they've been doing or to continue to do what they're doing well. So it's about behavior change. And we know that in a perfect world, that, like if these are your macros, hit your macros, get your 8 hours sleep. This is what the research says. But then that's research, right? It's in a controlled environment. It's probably done on a very specific group of individuals, mostly younger men. And it's a set of instructions, but then on the other side you have a very messy human, not Carol, anyone. We are messy, we are emotional, we are irrational, even when so now you've got this like, kind of robotic set of instructions, and you've got a real life living person in a crazy world. You've got politics, you've got religion, you've got travel, you've got, how do you put the two together? And sometimes we start in places that are maybe a bit unconventional. One of my clients, her only job was to eat without distraction. She's like, I am I paying you for this? And I'm like, yes, you are. But your only job is to make sure that you are not watching TV, looking at your screen, reading the newspaper on your phone. Just sit and eat because life is so fast and so busy. We don't even connect into our satiety signals. And a lot of people picking up weight has got to do with the fact that we're eating so fast. If you just slow down your eating, be present, enjoy your food, you'll stop when you're full.
Mm.
And that's like, it's got nothing to do with macros. And people are like, well, I want to lose weight. I'm just like, slow down, make space,
Mhm.
be present. So sometimes, yeah, and it sounds like a ridiculously small thing. And I challenge anyone listening to go and do it for an entire day. It's really difficult.
Mhm.
So
All those small, yeah, all those small things add up though. It could just be, but for that, like what you mentioned about your client there, to that person, that could be a huge thing. That's what's gonna that's gonna be the difference. And speaking about success and the formula for success. Carol, you mentioned there, making things easier so it's not taking up bandwidth when you've got 101 things to think about. Pia, you mentioning there about, well, actually, let's just focus on that one thing. Is that formula for success? Matching that research, that information that is, because there is so much information out there. Yes, there's which I think some people forget that there are, textbooks that people can still read. It's not all Instagram and ChatGPT and everything.
yeah,
But
rather read the
blending,
textbook.
yeah, but blending that and being like, right, what's going to be right for that person on there, and then probably from your side, Carol, does that make it feel as though it's kind of like personal to you rather than like a cookie cutter? Oh yeah, just do this. This is what's worked for everyone, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think, when Pia and I have our weekly check-ins, the questions that I get asked in that check-in form are not just, did you hit your macros? If not, why not? It's a lot more nuanced than that. There's questions about, let's celebrate the wins. What did you do really well this week? And I think actually that's really valuable because we can be our own worst critic, can't we? And you sometimes forget to actually reflect on what's gone well and kind of build that momentum with the good stuff. But there's stuff around, what challenges got in the way, what's going on next week, do we need to pivot? Is there travel? Is there whatever? And so it's really rounded. There's just a lot going on. And I think I'm just reflecting on something Pia said there about the coaching process. One of the first nutrition coaches that I ever worked with, which was years and years ago now, um, I was trying to drop a little bit of weight and I was on, frankly, knowing what I know now, ridiculously low macros for my size and activity levels and whatnot. And I was really, really struggling. And I just remember this person saying to me in a check-in, um, put on your big girl panties and suck it up. And I just would never get that from Pia. Yeah, I get some tough love from time to time, and she does hold me accountable and she calls me out if I'm slacking or if I'm making excuses, but in a way that is just so much more constructive.
Yeah. I think that's from the example that you've used there. It's kind of um, that person trying to make you fit their plan rather than adjusting the plan to you. Because if something's not working, something's got to change, or else you kind of just yeah, heading in a direction that, at some point something's got to break, something's got to give it at some point. Have you got any thoughts on that, Pierre?
Well, I mean, yeah, like, you know what? I mean, it doesn't help anyone, right? Just try harder. And I always think, like, somebody said this to me once, and it's always it's that I always come back to it is that every behavior is a coping behavior. So if somebody's struggling to hit to their macros, I'm like, okay, let's what's really going on here? Um, and I see it more as like, how can I kind of decode the problem as a coach? And do I need to be better at helping them and setting them up for success? Like, so first of all, it's like, why aren't you hitting your macros? Not in a kind of confrontational way, but, and that's also what's the way we phrase our check-in questions is very specific way that we phrase it. Um, and also phrase the wins because you know what? Like I said to you, we only know if something's going to work or not if you show up and you try it. But now let's say we need you to hit maybe 200 grams of carbs a day, and that might feel like a lot of food for you. And you're not hitting it. Now saying, oh, just try harder is not serving you. It's like
Just
saying to
get a
somebody,
bigger spoon, get a bigger fork.
like it's like you're not hitting depth on your squat. It's like, well, just squat deeper. How does that help you? It does not. It actually makes you like even more stressed about not hitting depth, right? Now you're like, I'm a terrible lifter. I can't hit depth. Meanwhile, it could be something completely unrelated, like, or maybe you just have to change it, whatever. You get my meaning. But so I'm like, okay, well, if we understand what's going on, we can actually scale back. Is this person overwhelmed? Sometimes they are. Because from a nutrition perspective, what people also like to do is they like to do the nutrition equivalent of a 1 rep max on their first day. And they'll go and they'll try and do like a new, like hit all their macros, get all their sleep, get all their water, 8 hours, and you just that you might do it, but you're not going to do it for a whole week. But you probably won't do it. And then you're going to be feeling shit because you haven't hit all your goals. And you'd never expect somebody who's never deadlifted to go pick up 200 kilos on their first day in the gym, ever. So
Mm.
why do we do that with nutrition? Start with the bar. Well, let's check your mobility. So sometimes it's like going, well, sometimes we scale back and we say, right, maybe we just need to get in an extra 5 grams, 10 grams of carbs with your breakfast. Let's start there. Maybe it's looking at their environment, and this is what our check-in process also reveals is a lot of times your environment will dictate your success from a nutrition standpoint. Have you got food in the house that supports you? Do you know how to shop? Do you know how to cook? Do you know how to constitute meal? I mean, do you know, we're assuming here what everybody knows what macros are. What's your emotional state like? Because if you don't have food that supports your nutrition in your house, you ain't going to eat it. It's very simple. And if you come home from gym and you're starving and the first thing you see is a Cadbury's chocolate on the counter, that's the first thing you're going to eat.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter who you are. So sometimes it's about looking at what's happening from an environmental perspective. So there's many different ways that we can kind of decode why somebody's not being able to hit the behaviors that we want them to. And sometimes they're like, I just didn't try, and that's also fine. Like we know what to do there. So um, it's yeah, I always like to see it as okay, how do we get this person a win? Because beating somebody all the time like is not helping them. I mean, it's one way of coaching. It's not something I've been working with a coach that coaches like that, and it's horrible. But you know what? Hey, we always look at a win, and then we always look at a tiny evolution that could maybe inch you closer to that goal. So do you think of macros as progressive overload in a way. Um, it's something you kind of got to work up to. And then it becomes a skill. Like once you've learned how to, you know, low bar squat to depth, you kind of know, and you can just practice that.
Mm.
Yeah. I think there was some really good points in there, and from kind of like both what you've said there is, what wins are you gonna look for, and Carol, you mentioned in there, I think you mentioned it right at the start of the podcast about the results speak for themselves, how you're feeling and performance, and in terms of bigger picture, because Pia, you said the work goes in, before the competition rather than trying to change it from there. Was it kind of a case of because there's so many, I don't know if to call them myths but there's still quite a lot with nutrition of like carbs are bad. You can't eat this, or you eat too much of this and your head will blow up, or whatever it is. Do you think that it's kind of it takes that investment in time to actually notice that difference of, do you know what, actually following this plan with intention that you've mentioned, Pierre, is makes you feel better, Carol? Do you know what I mean? Like over time, as opposed to this, well, I want to feel like this in 4 weeks, whereas actually
Yeah.
2 years in from where you are now, does it take that amount of time to notice, bloody hell, I got this completely wrong, or I've never felt like this, or usually I would be knackered, flying back from India, whereas yeah, you're still tired, but physically I'm kind of like, yeah, I can still pick stuff up, I can still squat or anything like that, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it does take time for sure. I mean, I think I noticed changes pretty quickly, but I think now, 2 years in, sometimes you've got to kind of look back to realize how far you've come, don't you? And funnily enough, I was doing my check-in at the weekend for Pia, and we do progress photos, and I took some progress photos, and I thought, you know what, I look all right. So I decided to get the original set of progress photos from my very first check-in and put them side by side. And I put this on my Instagram story because I was like, wow, what a difference. And I mean, we didn't set out on this with physique goals or aesthetic goals at all. It has always been about performance, but the changes in my body composition have been a really nice side effect. But I feel at this time of my kind of life and lifting career better than I did 20 years ago.
Mm.
Physically, mentally, and I definitely see a huge correlation between my nutrition being where it needs to be and how I feel, not only physically, but mentally as well, and how I cope with stress, how I perform in the gym, how I perform at work, how I can kind of show up for the people around me. It makes an absolutely massive difference. And if I have periods where my nutrition isn't where it needs to be for whatever reason, I feel it really, really quickly. And it's interesting you say the kind of travel thing. I traveled back on Friday night from India, and I had 22 hours door to door from leaving the hotel in India to walking through the door here. And
Wow.
I needed to train. I had my primary day to do, and I was like, do I do it on Friday night when I get home? Do I park it and do it on Saturday? And I had other stuff going on over the weekend, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to let good enough be good enough. It probably won't be the most high quality training session I've ever done, but I'll get it done. So I had my pre-workout nutrition as per my instructions, and I got in there, and I had an absolutely fantastic training session. I was hitting numbers that for me were big numbers, and they felt really comfortable. And it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's some kind of secret sauce that
Yeah.
she's
It's
given
voodoo.
me.
It's voodoo.
It is. It's, yeah,
Yeah. Maybe it's like this sleeping on. Did you sleep on the plane?
yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it's
Do-
also crazy. I mean, we had a sorry, I had a 2 day drive last weekend, and then I had a crazy good squat session on Monday. I'm like, what's going on? Doesn't add up, Maybe there's something to just resting your legs.
And
Maybe.
with that, because the key, thing that we've spoken about, and you kind of said it there, Carol, is that the main focus is obviously performance. You know, as powerlifters, everybody wants to be able to perform on the platform, lift heavier, build a bigger total, get PBs, all those sorts of things. But um, it'll be good to hear kind of like both perspectives of this from like kind of athlete and coaches. You know, is when you're working on nutrition and trying to get that secret sauce, that formula for success, is it, you know, purely focusing on performance so that they can get those sessions done, like after traveling for 22 hours and getting a session done afterwards, you know, with that pre-workout meal? Or is it, you know, a couple of points that we've touched on there of um, being able to, this might sound really cheesy or not make sense at all, or kind of like perform for life. So you've got enough energy, so you're feeling good. So both are equally performance
Mm,
with that outcome of lifting heavier, but it's kind of maybe prioritizing one over the other because, you know, for this might not be a very good analogy, but kind of it's the only one I can think of right now is going up a weight class. It could just be a case of like what we mentioned earlier about coaching cues of we'll just eat more and you'll go up a weight class and yeah, you'll probably lift a little bit heavier, but you might feel rubbish doing it. Whereas
mm,
there's probably better ways of doing it, increasing a weight class, or like what you mentioned, Carol, you know, originally you wanted to drop down a weight class and it could be a case of just eat less. Well, you'll probably feel rubbish and you're not going to eat as much. So is it
mm.
focusing on performance on the platform, or is it, you know, working with that client, with that athlete to perform better at life so that they can then execute better? I know that was a little bit long-winded, but I
Hmm.
hope that kind of makes sense from for to see both of your sides of that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. And we started out on this with it being about kind of athletic performance and performance in the gym and performance on the platform. But I think there has undoubtedly been a kind of transference into other aspects of life. And I'm just performing better. Um, everywhere really. And I think I say this about kind of powerlifting all the time, not just the nutrition piece, but discovering lifting. I mean, I came to lifting kind of reasonably late in life. I didn't start as a junior or even an open. I was kind of almost masters by the time I started. But discovering lifting has been an absolute game changer. And I mean, I've done stuff at work that I never ever would have dreamed of doing. And I believe in my heart that I would never have tackled some of the things that I have if I didn't lift. Um, and the nutrition piece has been huge as well, because I think just feeling better, feeling stronger physically has a huge crossover, and that kind of confidence that builds from being able to do hard things in the gym and being able to do hard things on the platform is absolutely huge. And I think particularly huge for women and particularly huge for women who are not 23. Um, so I think it all kind of plays together and becomes this kind of virtuous circle of performance in its broadest sense. And it really has been phenomenal. It's been so exciting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you got anything to add to that, Pia?
Yeah. If you unpack performance, like and what it means, and if you think of some of the most high profile CEOs in the world, they are doing exactly the same as Carol's doing. They are paying attention to their health, they're eating well, they're sleeping well, and performance is performance. The arena is irrelevant to me, right? If you want to be at your peak, you have to, uh, however you're executing that physically or mentally, you're not going to function well mentally. Let's say, you're a chess player or you're a strategist or you're an actuary, your brain requires so many carbs. It's frightening, actually more than lifting. But you need to be physically well, mentally well, emotionally well. And so for me, it's just a different facet of the same thing. And if you're just executing on the platform, but the rest of your life is falling to shit, what am I helping you achieve?
Mhm.
For me, it's not lifting at the cost of mental health or lifting at the cost of relationship, lifting at the cost of career. I wouldn't call that healthy. I wouldn't call that performance. You know, some people do that, but then you get to the other side and like, what have you got, right? It's a huge component of our lives, but it's not who you are. It's not the sum total of who you are. You are much more than that. You are a partner. You are a business owner. You are maybe you work for somebody, but you have so many other facets to your life. And if you are not helping someone manage their overall stress and resilience in other aspects of your life, they're going to fall short on the lifting. So if you win the day, however that looks, if you're training on that day, yeah, there's some quick wins that Carole spoke about it. We spoke about it on the last podcast. Just making sure you've got enough food for your training and to kickstart your recovery and enough food overall. But if you win the day every single day, you will win in the platform,
Mm.
not the other way around. And for me, like, and this is a really cool thing, and I think I just said it to Carol, is like, you know if you know that you've shown up, so the skills that you learn through the coaching that we do, it's like they do translate, because it's the skill of showing up when things are difficult, the skill of showing up when you feel like you're falling short, but doing it anyway. The skill of leaning into discomfort and difficult things and difficult conversations. These are not unique skills to nutrition. They're very useful for life. And they kind of teach you how to navigate these things, and learning that, okay, this is not going to be permanent, it's not always going to be forever, and that you have the power to influence the way you feel through the decisions that you make and what you eat. We have so much power we don't even know. But knowing that you've showed up for yourself every single day, getting to platform gives you a confidence that you cannot fake. That it's not like an arrogant confidence. It's not like, and I see the guys, and I can see when people are feeling, well, I think I can see that they're feeling a little bit like they need to peacock around, they need to strut around because they're not confident. And maybe they are talented lifters and genetically gifted, but there's just something that you can breathe out, and you get to a point and you're like, I've done everything. Like, I cannot have done one more thing. I've shown up every day, however that's looked. And that's a lot of the work that we do around reframing perfection. It's not about hitting macros every day. It's about showing up. We know this about showing up as you can every day, but sometimes it's difficult to do that. And you get to platform and you're like, well, I'm just going to have fun now because I've done the work. And
Mhm.
you cannot buy that. You cannot fake that. You don't get that from 6 weeks out. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, you got to answer your question, performance for life and performance on the platform, it's the same thing,
I think you just summed
I
up the
think.
episode there. I was pumped after you said win the day. Then I was like, what a statement that is. Yeah, I completely agree, and that was kind of why I wanted to speak to you both today around. There is a lot of which we've already touched on, but a lot of information about training, what's the best program, but ultimately, and this is something that recently I've had quite a lot of chats with clients about of sometimes it's going to be the things outside of the gym that's going to have a bigger impact, and ultimately if you feel like you're performing better as a person, you feel good, in other aspects of everything, ultimately that's going to allow you to perform better. Quite a lot of topics and tangents spoken about there, but the
Yeah.
last question that I always like to ask is from both sides, from the coach, from the athlete side. What would be your take-home points or words of wisdom from everything that we've chatted about today?
Oh, that is a great question. Um, I think for me, it's really just that kind of when you get the whole thing working in synergy and you get the different building blocks of all of this in place and you get the right people around you, the sky is the limit. And, for me, it is about the people. It's about having that team and that expertise and that support. I'm incredibly blessed to have a network of phenomenal people around me in all aspects of life. Pia's just one of them, but you get that support network and that infrastructure, and you can achieve things that you never would have imagined possible.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good, Carol. Yeah. Now, now, what am I going to say? Yeah, I echo that too. But also, like I always say to people, um, you're not going to get, like we will always hit soft sand. There will always be a point in any endeavor where like we plateau, right? And I think with powerlifting, it's such we have these growth spurts. And when we begin, that's the best part ever. But then you'll have like a big jump and then there'll be a plateau and a big jump and a plateau. And sometimes you need to kind of decode a few things. And I always say to people, and mostly probably because I had to say it to myself, is it's not going to get better if you stop, right? So sometimes you just have to just go, okay, I just need to keep showing up. Maybe the way isn't clear at the moment, but it's not going to become clear if I give up right now or just throw in the towel or just blame everyone. So it's also about taking ownership and accountability. And sometimes most times I'm like, it's just a discussion with your coach. But sometimes you have to do what Carol did and just go, well, let's evolve and
Mhm.
let's upgrade the ecosystem. So I guess the summary of that is don't stop and win the day, however that looks, even if
Nice.
it's just eating your veggies on the day.
Two very
That's a
good,
win.
two very good take-home points and words of wisdom there. Thank you very much to you both for taking the time to jump on. I thought that was really a really good chat, really good conversation, and I think there's a lot of useful content and information out there for people. If anyone listening has any questions about what we've chatted about today, want to reach out and speak to you both, or see the content that you put out there, where could people find you or reach out to you both?
They can find me on Instagram at Carol O'Neill, all one word. Carol with an E, O'Neill with one L.
Yeah, I still get her name. It's embarrassing.
I wondered why there was a pause there.
No, I'm just like, oh yeah, O'Neill. So with me, you can find the business at Fiercely Fueled on Instagram, or my private Instagram is Pia_Marangoni.
Awesome. Well, thanks again to you both for taking the time to jump on. Really, really enjoyed
Yeah,
chatting with you both today.
yeah,
Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.
yeah.